Hello, and welcome to the Behaviorally Speaking Sustainability Livecast series. My name is Michele McCorry. I'm a Senior Vice President here at Behaviorally, and today I have with me a special guest, friend, and fellow taco lover, Meryl Debrosse, a Global Insights and Analytics Manager from Reckitt, who works on the Enfamil business. Welcome, Meryl.
Thank you so much for having me, Michele.
I am so excited for our conversation today. Keep it nice and chatty and nice and easy. And obviously this will be good for our consumers and our viewers to obviously get a sense of how you, Meryl, as a person and an individual, think about sustainability, but also for your brands as well as Reckitt as an entire organization. So let's dive really quickly and top really at the high level, and then we could go a little bit deeper into sort of the nitty gritty. How would you say Reckitt as an organization views sustainability?
So sustainability for our company is extremely important, and all of our brands and all of our divisions, so our health, hygiene, and nutrition categories are all moving towards higher sustainability goals in the next 10 and 15 years. So it's a focus for us as we, make sure that we do the best for our consumers.
Right. Yeah. And I was on your website last night, just kind of looking up, and there's definitely a lot of things that the company is looking to do, which I think as a consumer, super grateful, right? Because while individuals need to do something and we should all be part of the solution, we do really need the big organizations that have a big impact to take a leap of faith and do some changes here. So thank you for that. As you think about the different brands within your organizations, do you see, as you specifically work on the Enfamil business, but I know there's obviously other areas in home care, does the overall impact and the way you treat sustainability or the goals differ by brand?
I wouldn't say that the goals differ by brand or by category. I think that the actionability is different from brand to brand and category to category. So I think for Enfamil specifically, we always prioritize safety over necessarily, being the most quote unquote sustainable or minimizing maybe packaging in our products because, we're serving the greatest consumer, which is the babies of the world. And so we need to make sure that our packaging is safe and is meeting compliance. So on that end, our sustainability goals are a little bit different. But as I think about from a Reckitt perspective, Finish just came out with a new tab for your dishwasher. And one of the key insights, especially in the US, is that US consumers wash their dishes before they put them in the dishwasher. I am
Guilty.
100%
I'm sorry,
guilty of this.
I'm trying very hard to change.
Yes. And so, so much water is wasted per minute on this pre-washing step. And so what they did was created the Powerball, which is designed so that you don't have to do any pre-washing for your dishes prior to putting them in the dishwasher. So, for me, that has allowed me to use a brush to scrape everything and then put it in the dishwasher and still get the same, clean results. So that's an example of how Reckitt is really trying to move the needle. And so much water is saved in that initiative.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And again, I will certainly try harder, but it does bring up another kind of point in that, which is really like, how do you change consumer behavior, right? Because I think you guys have done a good job in terms of, right, the technology, but then it's like, how do we get the consumers to believe that technology and therefore change their behavior? So again, that sort of say-do gap that often happens.
Yeah, and it's so interesting because, even in my past lives, we do sustainability questionnaires, and consumers always score sustainability as of high importance, but then the actual behaviors don't reflect that. I really believe that sustainability, there has to be something in it for the consumer.
Yeah.
It can't just be we are blanketly trying to save the world, although we should be in that headspace. But but there has to be a gain for the consumer. And
Right.
so, when I think about the dishwasher example with Finish, that's saving me time, right?
Yep.
Because I'm not
Exactly.
spending as much time in preparation to put my dishes in the dishwasher. You think about like if you get um, one of the hybrid cars, right? That's saving you money
Yep.
on gas. So
Exactly.
there has to be something in it for the consumer to make the behavioral change worth it. And I think that that is a key area that brands and manufacturers and companies have to consider as they're designing sustainability programs.
Yeah. You mentioned that you've seen in surveys, right, for years, and I have too, right? People have always said this, so I would say this has been, it says to be important for years and years and years, and it hasn't been changing. But how do you think, knowing that, how have you as an insights professional sort of changed your thought process in terms of getting them over that hurdle or giving them a need or even sort of telling your marketing teams like we have to go further? So again, the role of the insights professional in making that change. Have you seen that change over the years?
I have, and for me personally, um, a big initiative or piece that I'm trying to push with my teams now is adding behavioral science lens to
Mm-hmm.
to any market research that I am
Great.
conducting, because that helps to get at that nuanced what's missing from just maybe some regular market research of, well, why are they doing this? You get into the system two, in addition to the
Yep.
system one, thinking of the consumer, so that you're able to say, okay, here is how we can frame the gain for them so that they will actually adopt a new behavior.
Yeah. No, that's really good. And I think it does address it right in terms of making sure that they actually do it. Are they putting it in the cart? Are they changing their behavior in terms of what they're doing at home? I think is a really good point. How have you, would you say, obviously you've been in the insights community for a while, sustainability is important. Is there a personal area that is super important to you in the realm of sustainability?
There are many personal areas that are important for me. One small thing has been um, lowering the temperature of water that I use to wash my clothing because that's super easy.
Mm-hmm.
Although noticing that, it doesn't necessarily work with all loads, but I think the majority of loads, you can wash them in cool or cold water, and just
Yep.
understanding how much energy that saves. Also, I personally am like anti water bottle, like plastic water bottle. So unless I'm traveling and I just have no other choice,
Yeah.
I do everything that I can to use reusable water containers. And I've even made complaints about the taste of the water in our office because I want to make sure that I am, using
Yeah,
reusable
absolutely.
water containers because that's very important.
Right.
Also, choosing a car that has like the highest or best gas mileage, and also just when you're running your errands, trying to avoid driving all around, really trying to make sure that the trips are kind of in a line
Mm-hmm.
and are grouped together so that you're not wasting gas. And
Yeah.
then I also try to take public transportation whenever possible. So sometimes even when I visit my parents out of state, I'll take the train instead of driving.
Wow. You're making us all look bad. Thank you for that. No, that's good stuff. I want to pick up on a couple things that you just said. You mentioned the word easy. And I think that's another thing, right? So I think earlier you talked about making sure there is a consumer benefit beyond just sustainability. But I think another point, right, is like lowering friction or lowering kind of the barrier to make it. Can you talk a little bit about any experiences you had or any testing that you've done to kind of support the making it easier for a consumer to change behavior?
Yeah, I think that whenever you're trying to nudge behavioral change, again, it goes back to what's in it for the consumer.
Mm-hmm.
Ease of use has to be a top KPI, I feel like at all times whenever you're trying to push consumer behavioral change.
Yeah.
Um, because if not, consumers are pressed for time, they're stressed. I especially think about, the moms and the parents that we, you know, look after, on the Infamil brand, and they are, stressed. They're not sleeping. As their child gets older, there's like concerns and guilt.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever a brand can do to reduce complexity is going
Yes.
to move the needle for behavioral change. So that is, I think, that goes into sustainability, that goes into innovation. Any behavioral change that you're going to push, it has to work for the consumer. It has to be easy.
Yeah. No, I would agree with that completely. Um, Switching course a little bit, when we think about the consumer, right, and we hear a lot about sort of brands with purpose, and you guys obviously again was on your website. There's a lot of things, especially with this brand. There's a lot of programs that you guys have in countries to help support women and babies. So there's a lot of this brand purpose, and there's a lot of what comes along with that is sort of the authenticity and consumers being, I don't want to say cynical of authenticity, but like, are they doing that just to sort of get my buy? Do you feel like a similar thing can happen in the area of sustainability? Again, so obviously we're going to still drive the consumer end benefit, but when we do utilize a sustainability claim, how can the brands think about doing it in such a way that it's not perceived as greenwashing?
Yeah, greenwashing is such, a an issue, when you talk about sustainability. And I think that it just goes back to the company has to walk the walk, not just talk the talk.
Yeah,
And so when we are sharing bigger picture initiatives that benefit even our employees or the communities where maybe we have our farms, and how we source materials, that is going to speak for itself.
yeah,
And it's not just we put a new claim on the pack and then you can't trace it, right? And so everything has to fit together, and we have to do what we're saying, and we have to walk the walk.
yeah.
And it has to trickle all the way from the top through the employees to our consumers. So, for example, going back to Finish, we have an event in-house later on this month,
Mm-hmm.
and the contest is, bring your favorite Halloween dessert and then leave your dish here to be washed in the dishwashers on
Oh, that's
site,
great.
right? As kind of like our own, like we're walking the walk. So
Yes.
these are the type of things that are super important. Also, just talking about EMFA specifically, we are very careful with the way that we do advertising.
Mm-hmm.
We want to promote breastfeeding first, and then we are the option, trying to be the healthiest option for when breastfeeding can't happen or in
Mm-hmm.
supplementation, to make sure that parents are giving their babies the best.
Yeah,
So we actually don't do certain types of advertising so that we are not um, competing with the messaging around breastfeeding, because we do believe that breast is best.
that's great. Really, really insightful stuff. If we sort of put our magic ball and we look, 5 years into the future, how do you feel the role of insights may be changing or would change to address some of these issues?
Think that we're going to use our dirty word, our term that everyone's talking about is AI. AI is coming. It's
Yeah,
not going away.
it is not.
No. And so we have to figure out what are the most responsible, but also effective and useful ways to incorporate AI into the
Mm-hmm.
work that we do. I'm just also personally excited, like I said before, about behavioral science,
Yeah.
and hope, and just seeing, as I'm taking in proposals for different research objectives, I'm just seeing more and more incorporation of behavioral science. This is why I love working with Behaviorally, because you guys were on the forefront of this for a long time. So those are the two areas for me as a market researcher that I'm super excited about. Um, and then also just understanding this new generation of consumers that are coming up and how they're going to shake things up,
Mm-hmm.
on from a trends and consumer perspective.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up because I feel like I always think about the next generation. Not that we should put all the responsibility on them, but they're going to be the ones, to your point, shake it up to sort of change it. If you had to do a pie chart, right, how much is it sort of the consumer drive to make the change versus some of the brands kind of making the change and educating the consumer? So, I mean, I'm sure both exist together, but where do you see the role of brand versus consumer?
I think as we are even seeing with just social media, these new consumers, they want it all. They're not
Mm-hmm.
willing to compromise, and they're looking for the cleaner brands. They're looking for more organic. They're looking for sustainable um, branding. I also
Mm-hmm.
think that taking the word sustainability a step further, they're looking for mental health sustainability. They're
Mm-hmm.
looking for life sustainability, right? So they are going to be pushing, and I think that brands need to authentically get on board and make sure that
Yeah.
their programs, their initiatives are meeting those needs. Um, it is huge when a company has these goals because we know that that has a bigger impact than just us as individuals. Of course,
Correct.
collectively, it's important for all of us to do our part, but these manufacturers, and you think about plants and things like that, when they move the needle, it is a huge thing.
Yeah.
So I think that this new generation, they're going to be asking for clean water sources, solar power,
Yeah.
sustainable farming, and just pushing things in. They're just not going to relent or accept less. So
Good.
manufacturers really need to get on board and make sure that they are doing and what they're saying and
Yeah.
walking the walk.
Yeah. No, I think that's great. And I hope that, it sounds like you and Insights are already seeing that coming. I've had other conversations, and I hope that the brands are sort of seeing this coming and we can get there sooner than, the next generation having to push us there. But no, this is
Exactly.
great. What else in our few closing moments would you like to share with our audience here in terms of anything Meryl or Reckitt or Enfamil would like to let us know on sustainability and next steps in moving forward?
I think for me, it's really just making sure that we're listening to consumers, and understanding what their needs are. The other interesting part is in our business, it's not just consumers. We also have a responsibility to healthcare professionals.
Yeah.
So making sure that we are listening. And I know that sounds trite or,
Mm,
basic, but if we aren't listening, we can't understand what those unmet needs are, and we can't make the it's usually the subtle changes that move the needle the most. We won't be able to do that if we're not actually listening to our consumers. So
yeah.
I know for me, I'm doing a big push of lots of consumer listening,
Hmm.
fundamental understanding, and then for personally for me is just finding any little way that fits into my lifestyle that I can um, make sure that I'm leaving the planet, if possible, better than I found it.
Yeah. No, that was great. And you touched on it a couple times, but I think it really is like, yes, we need big brands to do it, but sometimes it could be small, and 1,000 small changes will actually
Yes.
lead to something really significant.
Yep.
Right.
Exactly.
Meryl, I can't thank you enough for joining me today. You've been a fantastic guest, partner, and all sorts of other things. And I think our audience will thank you as well for everything that you've shared today. And I look forward to the next Taco Tuesday we develop.
Taco Tuesday. Thank you, Michelle. It's been a pleasure as always. And yeah, hopefully this was helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. You have a wonderful rest of your day.
You too. Thanks.
Thanks, Meryl.